Welcome to another episode of the MMA Lock-Cast. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOTN. This week we're going to be going over UFC Sacramento, which is headlined by Randamie and Aspen Ladd, aka Arya Stark. Super excited for this fight, strictly because we know what the fuck is going on with the bantamweight division, and this will probably give us our number one contender. And Randamie, we all know what the fuck is up with her, so it's always good to see her back in there. Uriah Faber's return, aka Mr. Buttchin, he's back, so it should be interesting to see how he does against a young up-and-comer and Ricky Simone. But before we dive into that, we're going to be going over the casuals with my man Big Rob. What's good?
Hey, what's going on?
So luckily for us, we had a huge knockout this past weekend. Probably one for the record books. Well, definitely is for the record books, and might even be knockout of the year. But we will let a casual perspective give us that answer or not. So, you guys know what I'm talking about. Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren. And we're starting off right at the beginning of the fight. Let's fucking go.
Okay.
That's Jorge Masvidal.
Okay. Oh. Well, I don't understand what happened there. Is that it?
That's it. Look at the guy.
Did you just start?
Yeah. 5 seconds.
No. All these people.
Fastest knockout in UFC history by 2 seconds. Before that was 7 seconds. And this guy just comes in. So the other guy's game plan is always very straightforward. The guy was 19-0, and he won all of his fights strictly by wrestling. He is one of the best MMA wrestlers to ever grace any form of combat sports. He is amazing. Look, he's just fucking mocking him. He's fucking mocking him. So this guy was a pretty hefty underdog coming into this fight. And everybody knew the other guy's game plan was just to go and try to wrestle this guy, get him to the ground, and just grind him out.
Right.
So, I wish I had... Well, let's replay it.
So
watch his right knee. It's his right knee that lands on his head.
Okay.
I wish this was better quality, too, but it was a pay-per-view. Ooh.
Oh.
And immediately the guy was already stiff. The extra 2 punches were for whatever. He's just talking mad shit to him because they had a lot of like animosity going into this fight. But yeah, he just there's video of him training that exact knee. So he's planned it.
He planned it, practiced it.
Let me see if I can pull this up.
Oh my god.
But there is video of him fucking doing it. Oh, where is it? Mike Brown. ATT. Nope. But it's interesting to see him pull it off. Especially pretty much to a T. Look at this. This is his coach showing a video of him like practicing it.
Okay.
Same fucking
way.
Knee. Same
right
fucking
to the head,
knee.
eh?
Yeah. And this was days before the fight. Just it's amazing seeing these videos afterwards. So his coach dropped this video after.
Yeah.
Because he was trying to do this. He was trying to repeat it just to get a hang of it. And then when he fucking pulled it off, and if you notice in that video as well, he's very laxed when he starts to fucking here. Let's pull it up again. He's very laxed, like hands behind his back, thinking that he's going to start off relatively slow, and then he comes in and fucking goes off. Let's see that again. Come on.
That was insane.
Yeah, fastest knockout. And
he was out. Like, why?
Oh, he was out already.
He's just
Look at
straight
this.
up hitting him.
Just relaxed,
Yeah.
smiling, think he's going to start off easy, and then just runs at him, and we fucking leg, of course. But he landed so clean and so powerful, especially if you can hear him hitting the pad when he was doing it in the training. You can tell he was like, fucking,
Yeah.
I'm going to start the thing like this. And this guy was out. The extra 2 punches, he had a really good quote about it. He goes, I don't know why people are so mad about it in terms of me like mocking him afterwards and stuff, because you can talk about wife, children, religion, race, whatever before a fight, and it's cool.
Yeah.
But as soon as the fight's over, we're not allowed to do anything. This is fighting at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk shit, I'm going to fuck you up,
Yep.
and then I'm going to still talk shit, because one of his coaches is like, even if I see him in Whole Foods, I'm still going to slap him up. His name is Street Jesus. His nickname is Street Jesus, because he has like these locks, you can see the cornrows and stuff, where he has like this long-ass hair, the beard and everything. Everybody fucking loves this guy, but yeah, it was absolutely insane.
That was so impressive.
Fucking love this guy. He's so fucking awesome.
I've never seen anything that fast. But so let me ask you this: Does that make other people angry, like who are watching the show? Like, would they say, "Where's the show? We gotta
Not
leave now."
necessarily. So, like a perfect example is I flew down to Vegas to watch Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo.
Okay.
And obviously, there's like 12 other or 11 other fights. So it's
Okay.
not like you just showed up for fucking 5 seconds of this Jorge Masvidal fight. But for the Conor McGregor one, like that's the fight that everybody was looking forward to. It was the main event.
Okay.
13 seconds done.
Okay.
Right. So like you're there for the moment of it rather than oh, I want to see this go for 15 minutes, or I want to see this go for
Okay.
25 minutes. You want it to be like, I was there for that 13-second knockout,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I was
yeah.
there for this 5-second knockout. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
it's like we can't really play the audio right now, but the crowd was going bonkers after this. Like,
Yeah.
not
It
a lot
looked
of people were
everyone was standing and
yeah,
freaking out.
it was nuts, absolutely nuts, and not a lot of people were expecting this guy to win either. So for him to win in that fashion, fucking insane, right?
Now, do you think that's a fluke? Do you think that if they were to fight again, he would just be like, "Oh, I'm not falling for that." So guess what? You're
Somebody
not
asked Ben Askren, the guy who got knocked out, the same thing. He goes, "It's not a fluke." He goes, "That could, if we fought 50 times, that could probably happen 20 times or something like that." Like
Really?
he said, he goes, "It could just happen. I'm not going to call it a fluke because he trained it. Like he trained that specific technique, and not saying that's the only thing that he trained going into this fight.
Okay.
It's more so just he played out certain scenarios, and if that didn't work out for him, I'm sure he had other things in his bag that he was going to pull out, right? So it's the guy who got knocked out is really taking it on the chin. He knows that he's kind of warranting the hate that the guy's even spewing afterwards because it would, again, like I said, there's a lot of animosity going into it. You know what you signed up for.
Yeah.
When you talk all this shit, you know what you signed up for.
True.
So it's good on the guy that got knocked out for being so understanding and being level-headed about it. And I think more people should be level-headed about it. Like, there's a lot of emotions that goes into it, you know what I mean? And this also means that he gets his full paycheck now rather than just half of it. I'm not 100% sure how much he's getting paid, but Jorge Masvidal gets his full paycheck now. Like, it's at the end of the day, it's about putting food on the plate. This guy's kids, shit like that. So
yeah, he's there to play, man.
another interesting perspective somebody brought up is if they didn't have this war of words or animosity, who knows, would Masvidal even have come out like that? Or would he have come out like just, okay, I'm just going to be a little bit more relaxed about this? But he was pent up, he, like right before, it doesn't show it in this clip, but you can see the camera panning in on him before the fight starts, and the guy's still talking shit to him across the cage. Like,
So
they
there's
just
a lot
have
of
this,
beef before.
lot of beef.
A lot of build up before.
So that could have been the trigger as to why
Yeah.
Masvidal started the fight the way he did. Like, he just wanted to start hot off the gate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was lucky because this was actually going on when I was in Montreal, and I got lucky enough that when I went into the living room, the guys were just about to start the fight.
Okay.
This was the first fight I got to see of the night because I was wrapped up with family stuff. But like I see them close the cage door. I'm like, okay, I guess I can watch this fight for a little bit. It's probably going to go 15 minutes, and then bam, done. I'm like, sick. All right. At least I got a decisive outcome that I can be like, all right, I saw the full fight. But it was good,
That's
man.
wild.
It was fun. Like it's very rare that you see quick knockouts like this. And obviously, this is the record in the UFC for sure is 5 seconds, but it probably realistically should have been 2 seconds. It's more so on the referee for being so far out. Like if you see here, like look how far the referee is compared to where the knee is happening. Right?
That's true. So it could have even been.
Look how far he is.
Yeah.
He's really far.
Yeah.
And then he notices the guy drop, and then he comes in to stop
So
the fight.
even then.
So let's see. Like he was out at 2 seconds. Look at that. He was out at 2 seconds.
Oh yeah. 2 seconds. It would have been a 2-second fight.
So it all comes down to like the ref kind of. It's hard
Even
to
the
tell.
ref wasn't ready for it.
Exactly. It's hard to say that he was out of place due to the fact that very rarely do you see a fight start off that that quickly, right? So I understand why he gave them the space at first, but that cost Jorge Masvidal a 2 second knockout, right? 5 seconds. I don't think anybody's ever going to top that. There's no way anybody.
Now, how long
tops
does
that.
it take for this guy to wake up? Just curious.
I fucking love that.
I know he's playing. He's playing.
He's playing to it.
Yeah.
Oh, I fucking love it. I think he was out for a little bit. Like he was out for a solid maybe 2 minutes or so.
Wow.
He got up. They had to not stretcher him out, but like kind of not carry him, but aid him.
Yeah, of course.
Essentially. So later that night, he tweeted from the hospital. He goes, "Oh, I'm good." He kind of made fun of himself too, right? Like he was poking fun of the fact that he got knocked out in 5 seconds. But that was his first ever loss in 20 fights.
Yeah, wow. That's
in 20 fights, that was his first ever loss. So It's unfortunate for him, but fucking nuts, man. It was great. I really enjoyed that. I've watched that probably 100 times by now.
It was
It's only
pretty
5 seconds, right? So
Yeah.
might as well fucking put that shit on a loop.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I got for the casuals. Rob, thanks as
Thank you.
always. Take care of Glitch. Glitch looks like he's fast asleep in your lap now.
Yeah, he's
Oh.
totally passed out.
And now he's up. All right. So yeah, that was the casuals with Big Rob going over the Masvidal KO. Big win for him. I hope we get a title fight for him next. To be honest, big wins over Darren Till and Ben Askren. The only person that really is in front of him, I would say, is Colby Covington, but he has a fight lined up with Robbie Lawler in August, so I'm not sure how that's going to shake out. Nor do I know how long Kamaru Usman's going to be out as well. So that's kind of what it really depends on. But we're here for UFC Sacramento. I'm just going to quickly go over UFC 239 in terms of my betting results. Probably the worst night I've had ever, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, it was very rough to deal with. Like I said, I didn't really get to watch this event from start to finish due to being in Montreal for a wedding and just being caught up with family and stuff. So it's kind of hard. I got to watch the first two fights. So starting off with the first play, it was actually the first two fights of the night. It was a parlay of Julia Avila and Ismail Nordiev. I had 1.5 units at minus 125. Avila came through, thank God. But then Nordiev, laid an egg. Chance Rencounter kind of, pretty much out-grappled him. And then Ismail gassed later in the fight. And then Rencounter was able to take advantage of that as well. So it kind of sucks when a minus 518 favorite shits the bed like that. I thought if Nordiev was able to deal with the pressure grappling of a guy like Prazeres, he wouldn't have as much trouble with a guy like Chance Rencounter in a fight that I thought was primarily going to be a stand-up fight. However, Rencounter found his way to get the victory here by using his grappling. So, hats off to him. Hats off to anybody that played Rencounter as well. But it's things like these that really make me question why I should be playing parlays or anything. Like the last time that really scared me off from playing parlays was when Ioane and Jacek lost to Rose Namajunas that first time. So it was unfortunate, and that scared me off from parlays for several months. But I eventually got back into it. It paid off for me on numerous occasions. I really want to see the numbers this year in terms of when I started playing the parlays again, and where I'm at in terms of if it's been a profitable venture to go back to parlays or not. But unfortunately, UFC 239, the parlay was on the shitty end of the parlay venture that I've been on since getting back into playing them. So that was minus 1.5 units there. Next up, we had Claudia Gadelha versus Randamie. I had 0.75 units on Gadelha inside the distance at plus 335. This is a fight that I haven't been able to watch yet. I will definitely get around to watching as to why Gadelha wasn't able to get the finish here. It's good that she got the victory. However, I thought that if this fight had gotten into the grappling exchanges and Claudia Gadelha got Randamie down, I thought she would easily be able to submit her or even TKO her. So I'm not even 100% sure if that fight made it to the ground or not. I want to go back and watch that fight. There's plenty of fights from this card that I need to go back and watch, and just for my own sake, know kind of what happened. Moving on, I had Alejandro Perez 1.5 units at plus 206 against Song Yadong. This was a heavily a value play. I love Yadong's Song. I think he has a lot of talent. My main concern with him was the amount of damage this guy's taken at such a young age. I think he started his pro career at 16 years old, and he's had a handful of fights, a lot of fights in that time, and he's been in a lot of wars as well. If you look back at his fights pre-UFC as well, he's taken a lot of damage, but his power stood up here, and he was able to put down Perez and get the finish here. Not much I can really say about that. Moving on to the first lock of the night play, Luke Rockhold versus Jan Blachowicz. This one stung the most, because I truly believe Rockhold has, top 5 pound for pound potential in terms of his skills. However, his striking defense is continued to be a lingering issue, and it continues to be a lingering issue. Since the Bisping and and the Romero fight, and it rears its ugly head again here with Jan Blachowicz, and a guy who I didn't expect to have the power to really hurt or finish Luke Rockhold. It sucked, seeing Rockhold get stunned after near the end of that first round, and then come back and get finished within the first minute or so of that second round. So it sucked. I thought there was great value at minus 175 on Luke Rockhold, which is why I went balls deep on it. I kind of went against my, one of my guidelines in terms of, staying wary of guys that have chin issues. I truly thought, him going up in weight would have a positive effect on his chin issues, but also it just doesn't seem like it did. Yeah, so maybe it is just maybe his chin is just completely written off. And also you got to chalk it up to his lack of striking defense. Again, I didn't think it would be an issue in this fight against a guy like Blachowicz, and I think that I haven't seen that first round in full. I've only seen the finishing sequence where he got hurt, and then I saw the finishing sequence where he got finished. But I want to see if Luke Rockhold actually tried getting this fight to the ground, because I thought that this is a place that he would have a really good chance of grinding out Blachowicz, landing good shots, maybe get a submission. And Blachowicz has a really good ground game too, don't get me wrong, but I think that Rockhold is just levels above some of these guys. We saw what he did to David Branch, who is in his own right one of the better black belt jiu-jitsu guys out there. So very shitty loss for Rockhold. A lot of people calling for his retirement, especially after a broken jaw. The guy has a lot of shit to do outside of the cage, so I wouldn't be bad to see him leave. Maybe it's better for his brain. So minus 5 units on Luke Rockholder. That one fucking stung. But the one that has me pounding my head the most is probably the Jon Jones inside the distance. So I had 5 units at minus 212. Thought that was insane, value for a guy like Jon Jones going up against a guy like Thiago Santos. But there's a couple things I want to touch on about this fight. One, why the fuck did Jon Jones not go for any takedowns? I understand that he might have issues or may have been a little bit hesitant due to Thiago Santos' power, but there were plenty of opportunities where he had Thiago Santos, his back up against the cage, and he could have easily shot, clinched against the cage, probably got an inside trip, got Thiago Santos down, and went to work. I thought that he had a massive advantage on the ground, but he was just very hesitant and just did not pull the trigger on any takedowns. It was absolutely mystifying. I had no idea why he did not, especially with Thiago Santos' fucked up knee, torn ACL, MCL, PCL, whatever the fuck it is. All of his shit was broke. It was bad. Yet Jon Jones, and it was evident. Like, I like to give the fighters the benefit of the doubt sometimes, that they may not be able to see that some things that we see through the TV screen. But it couldn't have been more evident that there was something wrong with Thiago Santos' knee. And for a guy of Jon Jones' stature to not go for a takedown or even go a little bit harder for a finish is very concerning. One thing that I think that this could be stemmed off of is the fact that Jones ain't on that good shit anymore. Maybe he is. Maybe he has a picogram here, picogram there. But he's probably not juicing as heavily as he used to before, because let's be honest, I don't buy the fucking dick pill shit. I don't buy this pulsing effect shit. I wholeheartedly believe him and Holly Holm, who has been probably tested the most in USADA history, at least in terms of UFC fighters. There's a reason they're being tested that often. They're getting away with it, and I think that Jon Jones, he's probably being a little bit more thorough about it in terms of not doing as much as he used to, or not being able to do it as freely as he used to, and that might be fucking with him mentally too, because guys like Vitor Belfort as well, they once they get off the sauce, they lose that drive, that aggressiveness, that hunger, and that will to win, because they had that mental advantage, I should say, of being on PDs and be like, you know what, I'm on this shit. I know I'm at the best I could possibly be right now, so I'm just going to go for broke. And I think with Jon Jones in these last 2 fights against Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos, he's really lost that will to kill, if you want to call it that. So that's kind of what I believe happened here. Very disheartening that Jones wasn't able to get the finish here, especially a guy who was on one wheel for the majority of that fight. But it ends with us having an absolutely shit-tastic night. Minus 13.75 units. I lost a good chunk of money that night, and it really sucked. But with the unit system, you know, I always recommend this with people. Make sure you follow the unit system. It is responsible gambling if you, if you follow it. So especially when nights like this happen, which is something that I kind of want to make sure that doesn't happen again. You're not fucking bankrupt, or you're not completely out of your bankroll. So moving forward, I think one thing I really want to adjust is going with the one lock of the night. It's like the name lock of the night itself, pertains to a bet that is the surest bet of the night. That's kind of what I wanted to, the direction that I wanted to go with when I initially came up with this branding per se, if you want to call it that. And playing multiple lock of the nights is probably not the best way to go about it. Even if I am as confident as I was going into these fights, I probably should have gone maybe no more than 3 units deep on Luke Rockhold. Being as confident as I was, but also having that the possible chin issues in mind, that probably should have knocked it off the pedestal of a lock of the night type of play. But the John Jones, inside the distance, I would play that again. I absolutely would have played that again, knowing, maybe not knowing what I know, but immense value in my opinion for a guy against a guy who doesn't really go to a decision. His only other decisions I believe were like Elias Theodorou and Kevin Holland, but yeah, man, that one really fucking stung. So maybe not maybe, but for sure moving forward, more than likely only ever one lock of the night play. I might go 3 or 4 units deep on another play, but 5 units should specifically be reserved for my surest bet of the night, whether it's a parlay, whether it's a prop, over, under, straight, whatever the fuck it is. There's only ever going to be one play with a 5 unit stake on it. And then we'll go as regular with our dog of the night plays and just regular plays as well. So another thing I want to kind of distance myself a little bit from playing value as much. That's kind of what really led me to the Perez play. I thought there was a lot of value at plus 206, especially with the guy that we've been seeing improvements from. But I believe I believe in the podcast I did pick Perez, but I still had a really strong feeling that Song Yudong could pull off the victory as well. So yeah, I don't know how much longer I can continue going on about UFC 239, but it was an absolute shit show. I appreciate anybody that continues to stay on the wagon and trust your boy. And I just got to continue learning from this and just fucking move forward and really start to string this shit together. And I know I have it in me. I know I'll be able to bounce back from this significant loss from UFC 239. But it's more about chipping away at it rather than completely trying to bring down the whole tree. It's just chip, 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 and we'll fucking get there. So I'm not looking to make back the entire bankroll this fucking weekend at UFC Sacramento, but I see some decent spots that I believe that I can exploit, and I'll definitely go over it with you guys. The one thing that I want to bring to your notice as well is PFL is going down tomorrow, so hopefully you guys have this podcast out in time, as well as Bellator going down on Friday. So there are definitely some spots that I like here on both of these cards. I believe that I'm going to be playing Glyco Franca in a parlay with Ed Ruth. Like I said, I'm very wary about parlays, but I do like these spots here. A current parlay between those two would be minus 148. So I don't mind that at all. I think that Glyco Franca is definitely going to have the advantage here against Sadibu Sai. And then Ed Ruth is obviously going to have very easy work with Koichi Kunomoto, in my opinion. Just implement that heavy wrestling game that he has. I just don't think that Kunimoto has the game to fend that off. And also I really like Rafael Carvalho as well. I want to look into that fight a little bit more, but I really do like that fight for Carvalho. I think he's the better striker here against Anjukwani, and the better MMA striker, I should say, as well. I got to look into it. But I think that I might poke a little bit on Rafael Carvalho, who currently sits at roughly minus 121. So keep posted on my Twitter account at MMA Lotn. I will probably make these plays later today, hopefully by the time this podcast is out. But just take a look at my page and see if I actually went through with it. I just want to confirm a couple of things with Glacko Franca. But I think that's definitely a parlay that I'm going to play, which is Franca and Ed Ruth. All right. Let's fucking get into this UFC Sacramento card. I like the card overall. You know, it's my man Tony on our last Combatters Tours episode. He called it salty, and I understand it from a. I like to call Tony a hardcore casual. You know, he knows the Cezar Ferreiras of the world. He knows the Julianna Penas. He knows the Nicco Montanos. But I don't know how much he really knows about Sheymon Moraes or Mike Rodriguez or Livia Renata Souza. You know, even a Karl Roberson. I don't know how much he really knows about those guys. But I think that every fight has a little bit of a intriguing aspect of it. They may not be the biggest named guys out there, but there's definitely like the Karl Roberson fight. You know, he's a great finisher. I'm interested to see how he does against a UFC newcomer in Wellington Turman, who I'm not too familiar with, but we'll get into that later into the card. But you know, seeing the return of Mike Rodriguez is great. Andre Fili against Sheymon Moraes is a great fight. Should be on the main card. No idea why the fuck it's on the prelims. The return of Julianna Pena after giving birth. Mama Pena, we'll see how parenthood does for her as well. Ryan Hall coming back, all way down on the card against Darren Elkins. Again, Livia Renata Souza, big strawweight prospect. Benito Lopez coming back too. Return of Uriah Faber. Josh Emmett against Mirsad Bektik is a great fight too. A lot of great fights. A lot of budding stars on here too. But overall, from a casualist perspective, it's probably not the greatest card. But from a hardcore MMA nut like myself, I love this card. So let's just fucking get right into it. So bear with me as always. The UFC's website is pretty shitty in terms of updating their any last minute changes or any changes that have happened in terms of fights. So even though we see Martin Day up there, we actually have Benito Lopez fighting Vince Morales this weekend. So just note before I get into these fights, this Montreal trip this past weekend really fucked up my schedule. I really gotta get on to more of this UFC Sacramento tape. I will give you guys full transparency in terms of which fights I'm most confident about and which fights I still require more tape on. But I feel like I have a good grasp on the majority of these fighters to give you guys a decent tell, or at least some advice on which way you guys should be going for some of these bets. So starting off with Benito Lopez, he's a guy that really does really likes the wacky striking. He has an unorthodox style, decent ground game, good, or I'd say better striking game. He showed off, his unfortunate ability to deal with a guy like Manny Bermudez, getting guillotine chokes 3 minutes into that first round way back in February. And now he's coming back to fight a guy like Vince Morales, who I definitely need to dust up on a little bit. Vince Morales is coming off a victory over Emmett Zahabi, which is huge for him. I believe he was a pretty decent underdog going into that fight as well, so big loss for him. He was plus 150 underdog going into that Zahabi fight. Before that, lost to Yadong Song, and then before that, he fought in Bellator, where he beat a guy named Justin Hugo, who was only 3-4. So weird fight there. I think this is a fight for Benito Lopez to win, especially with Vince Morales taking this on short notice. I've always liked fading Benito Lopez in the back. I still don't think he's, as legitimate as most people think he is. But I don't know if this is the spot to actually fade him. I'm going to take Benito Lopez strictly due to the fact that, Morales is taking this on short notice. Would I bet it? I don't know. Benito Lopez is the underdog. I want to look into this a little bit more. Maybe I see some spots where he would be able to take advantage of a guy like Vince Morales, but the short notice aspect of this fight for Morales really has me hesitant on it. So I don't know if I would play Vince Morales. The odds are close enough, so I would suggest looking into it a little bit more, but I have yet to do so. So we're going to go with Benito Lopez by decision, but something I definitely need to look into a little bit more, so don't take my word for it. Next up, we got Livia Renata Souza versus Brianna Van Buren. good on the UFC for updating Brianna Van Buren, even though she has no picture. Livia Renata Souza, a fighter that's been pretty much good everywhere. She had a little bit of a tough test against Sarah Frota last time around, winning a decision victory. She was scheduled to fight Carla Esparza back in April. Unfortunately, that fight did not come to fruition, as well as fighting Cynthia Calvillo at this UFC Sacramento card. Unfortunately, Calvillo had to pull out, and in steps Brianna Van Buren. So Livia Souza, she comes into the UFC, quick guillotine choke, 1 minute and 21 seconds of Alex Chambers at her UFC debut, and then comes back and fights Sarah Frota and goes to that split decision. So I think the allure of Livia Renata Souza has kind of worn off a bit after that Sarah Frota fight, because a lot of people thought it was going to be a little bit easier for her. She was a minus 235 favorite going into that fight, and now she comes into this fight against Brianna Van Buren as an underdog. So this is a fight that I want to look into a little bit more. I'm not too familiar with Brianna Van Buren. I got to look into her a little bit more. I believe she is the current she's the current strawweight champion. And she was in that one night Invicta Phoenix Rising tournament where she beat Manjeet Kolekar, Julianna Lima, and then Kaylin Curlin to, get that victory and get that title. So good for her to come into the UFC with a title. And I'm interested to see why people are so high on her and why she's the slight favorite in this matchup. I love Souza's game. She's a good striker. She does very well with her jiu-jitsu as well. And I want to see what Brianna really brings into this. She did finish Kaylin Curran with the choke in the second round, but y'all know what I think about Kaylin Curran. She's not the greatest fighter out there. So right now I'm just going to take Livia Souza by decision, but I do got to look into this fight a little bit more. I apologize, but I think that Souza, at plus money, she has great talent for a fighter that's at plus money, but I got to see what Brianna Van Buren really brings to the table here. Next up, we got Pingyuan Liu. I'll always have issues with that guy's name. Against Jonathan Martinez. Starting off with Jonathan Martinez, he has a victory over Willie Buren last time around. That was back in February at UFC 234. Won a decision victory there. Before that, lost to Andre Sukumtat. And that was actually his UFC debut. That Willie Buren fight was interesting because I believe I bet Buren in that fight too, because I thought he would be able to implement his heavy, strong grappling game. However, Martinez was able to nullify that. But Pingyuan, I think Martinez is going to have a little bit more trouble with him. The one thing I found most interesting is the betting line for this. Li Pingyuan opened as minus 273 on Sportbet, and now he's up to minus 137. So people are seeing things in Martinez. Maybe it's the value. Maybe it's the fact that Pingyuan. I'm just going to call him Liu. I'm sorry, guys. He did have some issues with Martin Day. He went to a split decision with him there. Handily beat Damian Stasiak before that. Again, this is another fight that I really got to look into a little bit more. I like Pingyuan here. I like the guy's style. I think he's a great prospect, especially stringing together close to, 3, 6, 9, 10 straight victories. Good for him. But again, level of competition is very much lacking there. 2-3, 0-0, 1-0, 0-1, 2-0, 3-1, 13-6, 2-4, 10-5 is Damian Stasiak, and then 9-2 was Martin Day. So he's coming in against a guy that has a lot more experience, probably more battle tested than most of his last opponents. But I think that Liu will still be able to get the victory here. So I'm going to take Liu by decision. Next up, a fight that I know that I can get into a little bit more, that I've already looked into as well, is Darren Elkins versus Ryan Hall. So Darren Elkins is coming off of 2 consecutive losses. One I had as, his last 2 fights I actually had as lock of the night plays. Alexander Volkanovski beat him, and then Ricardo Lamas beat him. I think he has a little bit easier of a fight here against Ryan Hall, who's only really like a jiu-jitsu threat. And I don't want to say only by trying to understate it, because he is probably the best jiu-jitsu practitioner in the UFC, maybe with the exception of a guy like Kron Gracie or Brian Ortega, but straight jiu-jitsu, Ryan Hall is the fucking shit. I think that Darren Elkins is going to make this a grinding, gritty fight, but if he's not able to keep this fight off the ground, I think he's going to have issues. He might be able to outstrike Ryan Hall here. Ryan Hall has a weird striking style, but he makes it pretty clear he wants to get this fight to the ground ASAP, and I think he might be able to get a guy like Darren Elkins down. Elkins isn't the fastest guy. He has a lot of heart. He has a lot of grit. He does have a grinding style, but to implement that grinding style, he needs to get a hold of you. He needs to push against the cage. He needs to get you to the ground and just make it ugly. But that's not what you want to do against a guy like Ryan Hall. You want to keep this fight on the feet. Maybe clinch against the cage and do some damage there. But I think even with that, Ryan Hall will have absolutely no issues trying to pull guard or go for a leg, dive for a leg, whatever he wants to do. So for Darren Elkins to win this fight, I think he needs to keep it on the feet, but I don't trust his striking enough to be able to manage the distance properly, or his speed to be able to land shots without Ryan Hall grabbing a hold of him. So I think rightfully so, this fight is a closer line than it should be. Not that it should be, but Ryan Hall is clearly so it's roughly at even right now. At 5 times we have -115 on Ryan Hall, -105 on Darren Elkins. I might look at a play at Ryan Hall here. I want to just shore up a little bit on the tape here, but I feel really strongly about Ryan Hall here because I'm not that confident in Darren Elkins be able to keep this fight off the ground. I truly believe that Ryan Hall will get a hold of him, get this fight to the ground, maybe jump for the back, and I just don't trust Darren Elkins. He is a slow-ish fighter, but again, the reason he's gotten victories over Mirsad Bektik, Dennis Bermudez, and Michael Johnson is strictly through his grit and ability to take damage. But Ryan Hall is not a striker. Ryan Hall is not a guy that's gonna go out there and try to wrestle you to hammer on you and beat you up that way. He's trying to get a hold of a limb. He's trying to get a hold of your neck, your arm, your leg, whatever the fuck it is. He's trying to choke you out or submit you. And I think he's going to be able to do that against a guy like Darren Elkins here, who, again, he's on a tough stretch right now. And I think that Ryan Hall has the tools to get this fight to the ground and make it a very unfortunate night for Darren Elkins. So I'm going to go with Ryan Hall here with the possibility of playing him as well. Great value as well at the pick'em price he's currently at, in my opinion, too. Next up, we got the return of the Venezuelan vixen Julianna Pena against Nicco Montano, who in herself is also returning as well. She hasn't fought since she actually won the flyweight title back in December of 2017. She's had a lot of fucking time off. She was actually scheduled to fight Valentina Shevchenko back in September of last year. Pulled out of that fight, and that's roughly when she was actually stripped of the title. Shevchenko came back and fought, I believe, Joanna Jędrzejczyk later that year to claim the flyweight belt. So Shevchenko is technically the second women's flyweight champion of all time, in the UFC. And then Nicco Montano was actually scheduled to fight Sarah McMahon here. And Nicco Montano was actually somebody I was looking at as a possible underdog against Sarah McMahon. I think that was a fight that had Nicco as a slight underdog there. So it would have been nice to make that bet, because I'm not the biggest Sarah McMahon fan anymore. And I think that Nicco Montano definitely had the better jiu-jitsu, and anybody with better jiu-jitsu than Sarah McMahon has a chance of winning this fight. Case in point, Marion Renault. So, in this fight against Julianna Pena, I think she has a tougher test, and I think that rightfully so. Julianna Pena is the favorite. Yeah, she is the favorite, -165 right now. But Nicco Montano is going up to 135 here, and she might actually have a slight disadvantage in terms of size. So let's see here. We got 5'5", 65-inch reach for Nicco Montano, whereas we have 5'7", 69-inch reach for Julianna Pena. So Julianna may have a little bit more size on her here. I really want to see the face-offs to see kind of how it actually visually looks. But the only thing that's keeping me away from this fight, it's going to be a pass for me. Jeez, that last little sound I made sounded really fucking funny on my headphones. Anyway, get back to the fight. The only thing that's kind of keeping me away from this fight is both of their layoffs. It's hard to tell how they're both going to come back looking. Julianna Pena coming back from having a baby, we don't have much of a sample size in terms of women that have come back from having a baby. So it's tough to see how that's going to happen. The last time she fought was actually against Valentina Shevchenko in January of 2017. So it's roughly going to be 2.5 years since Julianna Pena has fought. And then Nicco Montano, I don't even want to know what the fuck's been going on with her. She's had a lot of issues, whether it was her weight or injuries or whatever the fuck was going on with her. But she hasn't fought since December of 2017. So it's a bit of a stay away fight. I wouldn't be mad at anybody trying to take an underdog shot at Nicco Montano, but I truly think that Julianna Pena is going to be the stronger and better grappler here, as well as better MMA grappling too. So tough to bet against Julianna Pena here, other than the fact that she's been away and she's a new mom. So I'm gonna have to go with Julianna Pena here by decision, but it's something that I'm gonna definitely pass on as well. I might look into it, look into it a little bit harder, I should say, but it's hard for me to confidently pick one side in that fight. Next up, we got Andre Fili against Sheymon Moraes. I love Sheymon Moraes. The guy's a great striker. Had a great war against Sodiq Yusuff, who just ended up being the better striker that night, or the better fighter that night, I should say. And then he gets another kind of a decent matchup here with Andre Fili. Andre Fili likes to strike, but he's not afraid of getting this fight to the ground and try to make it more of a grinding fight. It's currently roughly around a pick-em. I like Sheymon Moraes in terms of striking. I think he is the better striker, but I want to see a little bit more in terms of how he's able to deal with a guy that mixes it up like Andre Fili has in his last couple fights. I lean Sheymon Moraes here. His gas tank used to be a bit of an issue, but I think he's shored that up a little bit. Going the full decision with Matt Sales, Julio Arce, and then with Sodiq Yusuff as well. So he's able to get to the decision and get the victories here. But I think he's really going to need the gas tank against Andre Fili, because Fili himself, I believe he has a good gas tank, and his ability to mix up the fight throughout, for the full 15 minutes is going to keep Sheymon Moraes working and working and working. So I want to look into it a little bit more. I got to take a look at that Sodiq Yusuff fight one more time, as well as Fili's fight with Miles Jury. I believe I had money on Miles Jury in that fight too. But I just want to shore that up. But initially, I'm leaning Sheymon Moraes, but it could absolutely change to Andre Fili with a little bit more work done on that fight. So keep your eyes on my Twitter, like I said again, at MMA LOTN, and you will find out whether I end up going with Andre Fili or Sheymon Moraes. As of today, which is Wednesday of fight week, I'm going with Sheymon Moraes by decision. I think he's going to be able to piece up Andre Fili, shuck off takedowns, defend it, and then win at least 2 rounds to get a decision victory here against Fili. But I really like Sheymon Moraes, man. I think he has a ton of talent, and he's one of the more vicious and brutal strikers that the division has to offer. So, he kind of met his match against Sodiq Yusuff, but I don't know if Andre Fili throws with just as much heat as Yusuff and would cause as much trouble as Yusuff did to Moraes. So I'll go with Moraes by decision here, but I am definitely going to be looking into it a little bit harder in the next couple of days, and might make a play on that, just due to the fact that the odds are really close to it. I think if you can find value on a certain guy, not just value, but truly believe that one guy will win, I believe it's worth a shot, whether it's 1 unit or 1.5 units. But again, I'm going with Sheymon Moraes right now, but that might change a little bit later this week. All right, let's move along. We got Mike Rodriguez against John Allan. Mike Rodriguez is coming off a victory over Adam Milstead. He was actually supposed to fight Gian Vellante on this card, and I was really close to actually betting Mike Rodriguez until the fight fell apart. It was unfortunate. You guys know that I love to fade Gian Vellante, so this was definitely a prime spot for me to do that. But in steps John Allan, who actually lost to Vinicius Mejia on the Dana White Brazil Contender Series. He came back and beat Alexandre Silva, who was a 6-0 prospect back in June. Oh, wow. He's taking this fight on very short notice. So that's roughly a 2-week turnaround for John Allan here to get his UFC debut against Mike Rodriguez, and that might not be the way to go. It was roughly kind of a sloppy fight against Vinicius Mejia. He wasn't able to land the knockout blow against a guy like Mejia, who, he needs to get the fight to the ground. Probably not the best stand-up, and I think that Allan's going to have some issues here against Mike Rodriguez, who hits really fucking hard. I like Mike Rodriguez here. Would I play him at the crazy minus money that he's at right now? I believe he's close to minus 400 or so. I'm not interested in it. Maybe the fight doesn't go to decision, but even that's fucking crazy right now too. Let's see what that's at. Minus 315. So that's a little bit out of my zone in terms of wanting to bet that. But I definitely like Mike Rodriguez here. I'm going to say by second round TKO. Next up, we got Cezar Ferreira versus Marvin Vettori. Starting off with Marvin Vettori, he's coming off a loss to Israel Adesanya back in April of last year. So he has had an extended layoff coming into this fight against Cezar Ferreira. So don't know how he's going to look, but I think he has the cardio advantage here, and I think that he could definitely be a problem in the latter half of this fight. But I think up until that point, I think Cezar's going to have the strength advantage, the grappling advantage, and just, I guess, the grinding advantage here too. My only concern with Cezar Ferreira is his possible chin issues. He has been put out by fucking Jorge Masvidal and Sam Alvey earlier in his career, as well as CB Dollaway. But he strung together wins over Oluwale Bomboshe, Anthony Smith, Jack Hermanson, Nate Marquardt, and Karl Roberson, as well as losing to Elias Theodorou and Ian Heinisch in that stretch as well. He was actually supposed to fight Tom Breeze earlier this year, but that fight fell apart with Cezar Ferreira getting injured, I believe. But now he's back against Marvin Vettori. I think this is a matchup that he should be favored in. I was kind of surprised to see him as the underdog here. We have him currently at plus 130-ish. This is definitely an underdog that I'm looking at. I think he has some value here. I think I don't know why people are really favoring Marvin Vettori here. It's something that I should look into a little bit harder too. Maybe there is something that I'm missing, but I think that Cezar Ferreira, if his chin if his chin can hang and he's able to actually get this fight into the later I think even if he gets this fight to the ground, he has a good chance of submitting Marvin Vettori too. Vettori was able to go to the distance with Antonio Carlos Jr. Without getting submitted in that fight, but I think he has a good shot of submitting Vettori. Again, I love the plus money value on Cezar Ferreira here. I think him being the bigger, stronger guy is going to make it a little bit hard for Marvin Vettori, and it's interesting actually that. Yeah, I have no idea how the fuck Cezar Ferreira used to make welterweight, so I'm kind of glad that he went up to middleweight since that Oluwale Bamboshe fight. But I like Cezar here. I think he's going to get the fight to the ground. I think he could get a submission as well, but I think he, at worst, pulls out 2 rounds and then hangs on to win at least the third against Vettori here. But I got to go with Cezar Ferreira. Tough last fight against Ian Heinisch, who was able to grind him out a little bit better, but had the way better gas tank as well. But, kudos to Cezar for being able to, keep it together for those 15 minutes against a hurricane like Ian Heinisch. But I think he gets to the victory here and gets back on the winning track and cashes as a plus money underdog. So don't be surprised if you guys see me actually play Cezar Ferreira, but I need to do a little bit more work to make sure that, I still feel that way after seeing the tape that I need to see. Next, another fight that I'm going to kind of gloss over a little bit. Oh, I completely forgot to change the slides. But yay, look, we got Marvin Vettori, Cezar Ferreira, yay. All right, let's move the fuck along. Karl Roberson against Wellington Turman. I need to look into Turman a little bit more, but we know what Karl Roberson brings. He's a bit of a whirlwind. He likes going for the finishes. He only has ever been to a decision twice, his first ever fight, and then he fought Jack Marshman in a fight that he actually got injured, I believe it was. So he kind of resorted to more of a grinding style where he was able to just grind out rounds and get the fight away from Jack Marshman. But, he lost to Glover Teixeira in a fight that he almost finished Glover in as well. So I think it's either, finish or get finished. Cezar Ferreira is another guy that submitted him as well. So I think in this fight against Wellington Turman, I can't say too much about Turman as well. I know he's fought Marcio Alexandre Jr., who I believe used to be in the UFC himself. But I got to look into it. I like Karl Roberson. I think the play here could actually be the fight doesn't go to decision just due to, Karl Roberson's style. I think the last time I checked, minus 195. I think that for a guy for a fight with a guy like Karl Roberson, minus 195 is a great line for a fight doesn't go to decision. But I need to confirm what we see with Wellington Turman. Is he as willing to engage in these, these firefights that Karl Roberson likes to be in? What he has to offer really in terms of a return against a guy like Karl Roberson. So I'll take Karl Roberson by like second round finish. UFC jitters might get to a guy like Wellington Turman, and I've never really been high on guys that have a UFC debut upcoming. So Karl Roberson was actually supposed to fight John Phillips on this card. Phillips pulls out, and in comes Wellington Turman. So short notice, UFC debut. Probably not the best ingredients for a guy making his UFC debut. So Roberson minus 225 right now, but I think that there's a little bit better value on the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 195. So Karl Roberson, first round KO, but very good possibility that I play the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 195. Next up, probably the fight that I'm most excited about for this week, and I believe on the last Combative Stories episode as well, I had voiced that this is probably one of my favorite fights that are upcoming in the next 2 weeks, due to the fact of how these guys match up. They're kind of a carbon-ish copy of each other, but I believe that Mirsad Bektik is more of a pressure fighter, but they both have really good grappling. They both have good stand-up, but I think that Josh Emmett just cracks a little bit harder. But I believe Mirsad's overall MMA game is going to cause Josh Emmett issues here. So Emmett's coming off a kind of a Hail Mary finish over Michael Johnson in a fight that I believe he was losing. He had roughly 46 seconds left in that fight before he threw that winging overhand right, landed clean and crisp on Michael Johnson and put his lights out. Whereas Mirsad Bektik, I believe, is coming off a victory over Ricardo Lamas. It was a split decision. I thought he definitely won that fight. And then the Godofredo Pepe fight, he won as well. So he was supposed to fight Renato Moicano back in December, had to pull out of that fight, and now here he is back against Josh Emmett. Mirsad Bektik's a TriStar product. He definitely has good coaching there, good game planning, and I think he can implement. I think he can implement his, grinding pressure style against a guy like Josh Emmett while, avoiding any type of significant strikes for 15 minutes. I think he's going to be able to grind out Josh Emmett here. I think that, he just mixes it up very well. I want to be able to look into this fight a little bit more because I kind of, on first glance at minus 160, I kind of like that price tag on Mirsad Bektik. I think he holds some value here, maybe at 2 units or maybe even as a 3-unit stab. But I think that, he's a better complete overall MMA fighter than Josh Emmett, and he doesn't have to just rely on one strict thing. I think his loss to Darren Elkins was very eye-opening for him and was able to help him grow as a fighter. That was his first ever loss, and he pretty much threw everything in the kitchen sink at Darren Elkins, but Elkins just stuck around, eventually, got to finish in that near the end of the third round. But since then, Bektik has come back and looked very well, or looked very good, I should say. So I think he gets the victory here over Josh Emmett by decision, staying away from the big shots, but still pressuring and keeping Josh Emmett uncomfortable. How successful will he be in getting Josh Emmett down? I don't know how successful he'll be, but I think that, just mixing it up, clinch control, cage control, and then just mixing it up with the striking while staying away from the power hand of Josh Emmett is going to be what gives Mirsad Bektik the victory here. But I really like Bektik here, and I think he continues his ascent up that division and, finally achieving his potential that a lot of people believe that he had rolling into the UFC, I should say, especially from Faraz Zahabi, who's been pumping him up since, way back. All right. Oh, no, wait. We missed one fight. We got 2 more fights left, I should say. All right. Return of the California Kid. We got Uriah Faber against Ricky Simone. Uriah Faber, no idea why this guy's coming back. He apparently has a lot of business ventures outside of the octagon, so I'm sure that he has money rolling in from other places. Another significant change since he has retired, which was the end of 2016, was that he has a kid now. We saw what a kid does for a guy like Donald Cerrone. It kind of lights a fire under his ass, really gets him back into the game. So let's see if it's able to have a similar impact on a guy like Uriah Faber, who, this fight's happening in his home state or home city of Sacramento. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But this guy's 40 years old, man. He's going up against a young, hungry guy in Ricky Simón, a 26-year-old who is pretty much undefeated. Had a loss to Anderson Dos Santos way back in 2016, but since then he's rolled off 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 straight victories. Big victories, especially over a guy like Mirsad Fili. That was a weird ending to that fight. Big win over a huge prospect in Montel Jackson, and then not playing Hani Yaya's game, and then eventually winning a decision victory there. I like Simón here, man. I just don't know why there is like what there is to gain for Uriah Faber here. For Ricky Simón, obviously there's the name to add to his record, which is great. But how much does a 40-year-old Uriah Faber really matter on your record? But luckily for most people, when they look at it like a Tapology or they look at a Sherdog, it doesn't say how old the guy was beside their name when they fought them at that time. So just seeing Uriah Faber on his record, I think might raise some eyebrows for some people and say, okay, this guy might be some legit shit. But the true hardcore fans and the cappers out there kind of know that Ricky Simón is already the shit, and that Uriah Faber has kind of already fallen off a cliff, has been away from the game for over 2.5 years. He has been training. Like there has been videos out there of him still going to Alpha Male and training with some of the guys there and keeping in shape. So it's not like he's a fat ass coming off the fucking couch trying to get back into the game. He's kept in shape, but I just don't know how much that's gonna how beneficial that is for him against a guy like Ricky Simón. That the way for Faber to win this fight is to implement a grappling heavy game, because that's always been the best part of his game, being able to mix it up. But I think Ricky Simón mixes it up better, if not, more athletically now, and more, he has the youth here. He has a strength advantage as well. I think he's going to have the speed advantage here too. So I think it makes it very difficult for Uriah Faber to win this fight. I don't know why I believe that minus 350 is a little wide for Ricky Simón, because I truly believe that Simón wins this fight regardless. I think he wins a decision here, but I don't feel comfortable parlaying him here. I don't know why. I feel comfortable parlaying Ed Ruth at like minus 400 against Keiichi Kunimoto, but Ricky Simón, I've always had an issue betting against guys with big names like Uriah Faber, or older guys like a Uriah Faber, because there's sometimes that they might just show like glimpses of their old selves and they actually pull off a victory. But I truly believe that Ricky Simón is a really good bet, or is a really good pick here to win. But I just can't. I don't know what it is. I just can't muster up the energy to put him into a parlay or even bet him straight. Obviously, that would be outrageous for me to do on minus 350. But I definitely like Ricky Simón here. I think he's just going to be better than Faber, better, faster, quicker than Faber in all of the spots that Faber thinks that he's going to win this fight. And it's going to be a harsh reality for Faber to come back. He probably should have just sat on the couch and just been happy with that Brad Pickett victory to end off his MMA pro career. But I doubt we see Faber again after this fight. I think it was more of a one and done in Sacramento type of fight, and unfortunately for him, he's going to be coming out on the losing end here. So like I said, Ricky Simón by decision. All right, let's roll into this last fight. Main event time. We got Aspen Ladd against Jermaine Randamie. Last few episodes ago of the Combatisseurs, me and Tony went over the worst headlining fights for a UFC Fight Night, pay-per-view, whatever the fuck it was. I believe Tony went with Artem Lobov against Cub Swanson, and then I can't remember what I went with. I think it was Yair Rodriguez against Alex Caceres, but this could definitely take the cake. In terms of name value, there isn't much here, but in terms of significance in the division, there's definitely a lot of significance here. I truly believe that the woman that wins this fight probably has the best stake at fighting, or the best claim at fighting Amanda Nunes next. But I think both of these girls are going to get smoked by her, so it doesn't really matter. Starting off with Aspen Ladd, apologies. She's coming off a victory over Cezar Eubanks in a fight that probably could have been a little bit easier, or what people expected to be a little bit easier for her. I got to go watch it over again just to make sure I got my I's dotted and my T's crossed for it. But in the Tanya Avenger fight, she came out there like a fucking mad woman, got Tanya Avenger down, and then eventually ground and pound her and finished her. Even in the Lena Landsberg fight, she looked really good. But I got to dust up my memory on the Cezar Eubanks fight, because I believe that fight was a little bit closer than it should be, even though that Aspen Ladd won by decision. In this fight against Jermaine Randamie, she's probably fighting the best striker that she's ever faced before. So if she's not able to get this fight to the ground in that first round, I think she's going to have a lot of issues. And Jermaine Randamie is a big fucking chick. She fought comfortably at 145. Let's see in terms of actual statistics for the size, or the metrics for their size. Aspen Ladd at 5'6", with the 66-inch reach, and then Jermaine Randamie at 5'10", with the 72.5-inch reach. So she's going to have a little bit of distance to make up to close the distance. She might have to eat some shots to close the distance as well. Everybody knows who's been following me for a while that I always prefer grapplers over strikers, especially with somebody who has been showing really good grappling like Aspen Ladd too. I kind of want to see where it was a little bit harder for her in this Cezar Eubanks fight to get the fight to the ground, which is kind of what I've heard. I need to dust up on it to be sure. But with Jermaine Randamie, crazy striker. I think she's going to make it very hard for Aspen Ladd to close the distance and get this fight to the ground, because she's going to make her pay with a lot of shots. And I don't believe that Ladd's striking is up there. It's decent, but I think she still has a lot of work to do, and it's evident that her strength is obviously the ground game. And if she's not able to get this fight to the ground, even in the first 2 minutes or so, I think it's going to be a tough fight for her. Current odds plus 150 for Jermaine Randamie. I kind of am leaning towards Jermaine Randamie here, but I love the style of Aspen Ladd to get the fights to the ground. But minus 170, I don't know if I would bet that for Aspen Ladd. So for me here, it's on dog or pass, as like my guys Cody Saftik and Paul Shagnesi, or whatever the fuck, however the hell you say his name. But I like Jermaine Randamie here as an underdog. I might change my mind after I look into Ladd a little bit more. But as of right now, I like Jermaine Randamie. I think she's going to be able to keep this fight on the feet. If it hits the ground, it's going to be really tough for her to get back up, because Aspen Ladd does have a really good top game. I think she has good submissions as well, so she might be able to catch Jermaine Randamie in something. But the size alone is going to be quite a bit of a discrepancy for Aspen Ladd, and it's going to be interesting to see if she's going to be able to get this fight to the ground. I think if this fight hits the second round and Jermaine Randamie hasn't done too much damage on the feet, it might be a little bit easier for Aspen Ladd to close the distance and get this fight down. But I think that if Ladd is not able to get Jermaine Randamie down in that first 5 minutes, Randamie is going to, really make Aspen Ladd pay. She's really going to make her work, and it's going to be tougher and tougher for Aspen Ladd to get this fight to the ground. So, again, sitting here at 5:45 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, I'm leaning Jermaine Randamie by decision, probably picking Aspen Ladd apart, maybe even getting a later finish, maybe fourth or fifth round. But I love Aspen Ladd's style. I just don't know if I trust her, without, again, checking that Cezar Eubanks fight one more time to see how comfortable she is in getting these fights to the ground. Randamie showed good takedown defense against Raquel Pennington, but I believe that Aspen Ladd is a lot better of a takedown artist than Jermaine Randamie. So we'll see where my studying takes me, but as of right now, I'm going to lean with Jermaine Randamie. Might play her as an underdog. Not 100% sure about that yet. I don't want to force it either. Again, I don't want to value hunt as much as I used to before, because I think that really is taking a toll on me. However, if it's too hard to pass up, I will definitely play the underdog here in Jermaine Randamie. So, I'm going to take Randamie by decision, maybe fourth round TKO. But I like Randamie here, especially with the striking acumen. I believe she will have a lot of success. And especially with the reach and the distance that Aspen Ladd's going to have to cover here, it might be a little bit tough for her to get in on Jermaine Randamie's knees and hips without eating a lot of big shots. So let's go with Jermaine Randamie by officially, let's say, fourth round TKO. I love grapplers. But I don't know how Ladd's going to be able to deal with the striking of a Jermaine Randamie and close that distance. So official pick, Randamie 4th round TKO, but with a possible bet on her as an underdog. But again, keep tuned in to my my Twitter timeline at MMA LOTN, and you guys can know if my mind has changed or not as the fight week progresses, because that definitely happens, especially when we record the podcast like the Monday of fight week or Tuesday of fight week. It's a little bit early in the week, and there might be things that we come across that might change our opinion. So I would always recommend, even comment below on the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, just comment below, and I would be happy to update you guys in terms of how I feel on Randamie or any other of these matchups that I'm going to be looking into a little bit further in the next couple days. Yeah, that's pretty much it for UFC Sacramento. Decent card. I don't know if I'll be able to watch it live either. I do definitely have some plans with family this weekend, so it might be a little bit later of a catch up for me. So I'll definitely watch it as soon as I can. What else do we got? Tape index for UFC Sacramento is coming out tonight as well. I apologize. My Montreal trip really fucked me over in terms of my scheduling, but I'm definitely getting it out so you guys can at least take advantage of it for the next 2 days. But then I do intend on having UFC San Antonio's tape index out by Friday, so you guys have more than a full week to take advantage of that as well. What else is going on? Combative Stores, I believe, is being taped next week. I believe there might also be a scheduling issue with my man Big Rob, so I'm going to have to hammer that out. But I will be back on Monday for UFC San Antonio. Break that down for you guys. Definitely better than I did for this card, too. Kind of shitty to do that to you guys with some of these fights where I need to look into a little bit more. But I'm slowly getting back on track to make sure I am fully prepared for all of these podcasts once I start taping them. Last thing, Lock Fight League is coming back. I have a different twist on it. I don't want to spill the beans too much yet. I got my man LV working on some graphics for you guys to put out there to try to start teasing it to you guys. But I know a lot of people really enjoyed when I did Lock Fight League. Not a lot of people really got on the train when I wanted to make it more of a player versus player rather than a CPU simulation. But I think I'm going to go back to a CPU simulation, but with a little bit of a twist. So keep your ears tuned for that. Keep your eyes peeled for that. Don't know when I would start it up again, but I'm definitely going to be marketing it a little bit in the next little bit. But I'm super excited to bring that back for you guys and think I can make it even funner, or a bit of a funner experience. All right, like I said, I'll be back next week for UFC San Antonio. We got the Lock-Cast for that. Going to break down the entire card. I believe it's headlined by Rafael dos Anjos and Leon Edwards. Big fight for Leon Edwards. Finally a step up in competition. Say what you want about Cowboy, but that win feels like it's fucking forever ago. Big test for dos Anjos. He's kind of like the top 5 welterweight gatekeeper there. In my opinion, he won't probably ever get a title shot again or win the title again, but he'll definitely be up there with some of these guys. So that's pretty much it. Follow me at MMA LOTN on Twitter to continue to hear my thoughts throughout fight week, and if they change, check out MMALOTN.ca for my latest picks. Everything is free for the next 3 events, and I possibly will be playing my Bellator 224/PFL parlay in the next day or two, so keep an eye out for that. PFL, I believe, goes down on Thursday, Bellator on Friday, and then UFC on Saturday. So be sure you guys are up to date. Let's fucking make some money. Let's bounce back from this horrible UFC 239 event that just went down this past weekend, and let's start fucking getting back in the green, guys. Appreciate the support. Appreciate the subscribing. Appreciate the likes. Appreciate the thumbs up. Appreciate the thumbs down. Appreciate the comments. Y'all are the fucking best. Y'all are the reason why I keep doing this. And obviously because I enjoy it. Let's not fucking forget about that. But the appreciation and love that you guys continue to show me makes it even more worth it. So that's pretty much it for me. I'm out. I got to get home, finish off the tape index for you guys, and then get on even some more studying for Sacramento so I can finally make some motherfucking bets. See you guys next week. I'm out.